What is up, YouTube? Welcome to Panfro Games, and we have another massive leak for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And in today's episode, we're covering all of the stats of the brand new Pokemon. We now know their stats and their abilities, and honestly, some of these Pokemon are going to be completely busted in the Pokemon Showdown or VGC meta games, and I cannot wait to use them. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, like the video, I really appreciate it. And before we begin, here is the credit for the spreadsheet, and also none of the images here are real images of the Pokemon. These are all fan arts, but they're very close to the real thing. So beginning with our first starter Pokemon, Meowscarada, Grass Dark with Protein, and this thing is going to be a monster. It is base 110 attack and 123 speed. That is going to be amazing. So this is actually very similar to Cinderace and Greninja's stat line, except instead of going to special attack, it's going to physical. And I will say this, physical is inherently a little bit worse than special attack because burn exists. So I think it's going to be ever slightly worse, but also Protein was nerfed. Protein only procs one time when you're out in battle, but you can refresh that. So let's say Meowscarada uses U-turn, then you come back again, then you can use Protein again, but you can only use it once. So you stay in, you can only use it once. So that is a nerf. However, I still think this thing's gonna be in OU. I don't think it'll actually make it to Ubers because of that nerf though. And then we got fuecoco's final form here, Skelly-Dururge, which is fire and ghost type, and it has unawares as a hidden ability, which actually makes this thing really good. So like the stat line, I think a lot of people won't be impressed by, but 104 HP, 100 defense, 110 special attack is actually pretty solid, and its signature move increases its special attack stat and it does 80 damage. So I think this thing could actually be really viable. I think it could potentially make it into OU too. At the very least, VGC is going to be pretty solid too. Can't be faked out, unaware, ignores stat changes, and it has Snarl too. So I can see this as a bulky support similar to like an Incineroar type too, but actually doing damage with special attacking moves. So probably going to be maybe UU, but we'll see. And of course, I'm not talking about national decks. I'm talking about in region decks, by the way. And then we got Quaxly, which is water fighting, which has Moxie with 120 attack and 85 speed and actually pretty solid defenses across the board. This thing is going to be insane in my opinion because his signature move is an 80 base power water move that increases the speed stat. So you can increase its speed by attacking, you get a KO, you increase your attack. If this thing gets any dancing moves, it's gonna be crazy too. So I don't know, I think this thing is like a Blaziken, but you have to like work more with it. It's like a balanced Blaziken because there's no speed boost, but Moxie is still very good. So I think this Pokemon's gonna be pretty good. I think it'll be OU staple. It gets close combat, it gets acrobatics, gets liquidation. So overall, this Pokemon's gonna be a pretty strong threat. And then we got Oinkologne, and Oinkologne is actually interesting because the male and female do have different abilities, but they both have thick fat, which is good, and they have different stat distributions as well. So similar to like the Indeedys, I would say Oinkologne 1 is better here. The first one, just because 100 attack is going to be much more useful. 489 is actually a high base stat total for these guys too, so they could be somewhat viable. Wouldn't imagine them in OU, but definitely in the lower tiers, I can see these guys have some sort of viability. Maybe even in VGC if they have some good support roles. And then we got the Dunsparce evolution, which is the Dunsparce. And the Dunsparce has 125 HP, 100 attack, and 55 speed. And the 55 speed matters because the fact that Dunsparce already has an incredible move pool, and we have Serene Grace. So essentially, we are going to be paralyzing 60% of the time with Body Slam. And the reason why this 55 speed matters is because when we're going to drop their speed in half, we can now outspeed most Pokemon with just 55 speed when Pokemon are paralyzed. And of course, we got Coil. We have Headbutt for para flinching too. This thing's good. And honestly, like, yeah, special attack's not great at 85, but you could run a special set on it. So I actually think this thing is going to be a beast. It's going to be really bulky, and it's going to be an absolute menace with para flinching. So we got the Spit Ops line. Honestly, Spit Ops, not great. 404, there's not much to say here. It doesn't matter. Any signature moves on this thing, doesn't matter. It's not a good Pokemon. Then we got Low Kicks. Low Kicks does get Tinted Lens, which is actually a really good ability, and It could make it somewhat viable, but overall its stats are a little bit low. I mean, 102 attack and 92 speed is actually solid, but the fact that this speed doesn't cross 100, and especially when you're this frail with 71 HP, 78 defense, and 55 speed def, this unfortunately this Pokemon, it may be the best of the new bugs, but it's just not that great with the stat spread. You're better off just sticking to your usual Scyther, Scizor, and Cleavers. And then we got Reroller and its evolved form, Rabscara, and its Bug Psychic. It has less stats than Orbeetle, who has the same typing. It does have more special attack, though, with 115 special attack, 100 speed def. 45 speed does make it a Trick Room viable user. And if this thing does actually pick up Trick Room, then we could potentially be seeing this thing. But overall, it's not too crazy. Its abilities or whatever at the end of the day. We have to see the move pool on this one to make the decision, but I don't think this one's going to be that great overall. And then we got Houndstone, who actually has an interesting ability as a Sandrush and Fluffy, especially Fluffy, increasing that defense stat against physical contact moves, but we are now weak to fire. At the end of the day, though, I think this thing is pretty decent across the board. Definitely not an OU Pokemon, but I can see like UU or something like that. I mean, I just think the speed stat of 68 is really awkward. The attack and defense points are really good, and it actually does have pretty good speed def with 97, but that low HP with 72 is going to hurt it in the long run. And then we got Espera, which is pure psychic, and this thing has Opportunist, which is really good. It copies your opponent's stat changes and speed boosts. So this thing's gonna be fast as all hell. 105 speed already, so we can just keep outspeeding, which is pretty big. But we are rather frail, 60 defense, 60 speed def, 95 HP, but 101 special attack. So if we have a setup move like Calm Mind, this thing can actually be really strong. And then we got Houndstone, who actually has an interesting ability as a Sandrush and Fluffy, especially Fluffy, increasing that defense stat against physical contact moves, but we are now weak to fire. At the end of the day, though, I think this thing is pretty decent across the board. Definitely not an OU Pokemon, but I can see like UU or something like that. I mean, I just think the speed stat of 68 is really awkward. The attack and defense points are really good, and it actually does have pretty good speed def with 97, but that low HP with 72 is going to hurt it in the long run. And then we got Espera, which is pure psychic, and this thing has Opportunist, which is really good. It copies your opponent's stat changes and speed boosts. So this thing's gonna be fast as all hell. 105 speed already, so we can just keep outspeeding, which is pretty big. But we are rather frail, 60 defense, 60 speed def, 95 HP, but 101 special attack. So if we have a setup move like Calm Mind, this thing can actually be really strong. And then we got Wugtrio, which is literally an exact clone of Dugtrio, but just a water type with better moves. This thing's not going to be great, and also it doesn't have a trapping ability, so Wugtrio just doesn't have any real viability, unfortunately. Then we have Dondozo, pure water. I actually think this Pokemon's going to be incredible. 35 speed, incredible Trick Room target. Water type, fantastic. Unaware and Oblivious means we are not going to be setting up on Dondozo. 150 HP with 100 attack and 115 defense. Pretty beastly. And I mean, 65 speed def isn't that great, but with 150 HP, you can make this work. And looking at the move pool, I think this thing could actually be pretty solid at the end of the day. Then we got Velzua, which is water and psychic with Mold Breaker and Sharpness. Sharpness being a new ability that increases the damage of sharp-based attacks. So like Slash or like Sacred Sword or Night Slash, Psycho Cut. Honestly, this thing is gonna be pretty decent, I think. A little bit slow. Awkward speed stat at 70, which I don't like. Does feel like it has some wasted stats. Wait, never mind. I don't think this thing's gonna be that good, honestly. 102 attack with 70 speed. This thing just feels like a way worse Barracuda at the end of the day. So probably don't think it's gonna be good at all, honestly. And then we got Finizen, which is pure water, and then evolves into Palafin. And Palafin is very interesting. It's hard to judge because these stats are impressive. But when it procs 0 to hero, which it procs by switching out and then coming back in, it goes into its hero form. We're looking at 650 BST with 160 attack and 100 speed. This thing's going to be a monster, but it's going to be annoying to actually proc this. But you could use like flip turn 1, and then come back. We'll have to see if this thing actually ends up being good, though. There is the prereq of its ability, and you technically don't really have an ability. It's like not a great ability because you'd rather just have this be the Pokemon straight up. So we'll have to see how good this thing is, but I'm gonna guess it's actually gonna be pretty decent in singles, but not good in VGC. And then we got Arbavala, which is pretty decent actually. 39 speed, so really slow, but Seed Sour makes it so it sets up grassy terrain whenever it gets hit by a physical move. So that's actually not bad. I mean, 125 special attack really reminds me of something like a Florges here, just really slow. Has actually really good special defense too with 109. Potentially could be a good Pokemon at the end of the day. I think depending on the moveset, it has something going on for it. And then we got Villain, which is our very first grass and fire type. And the fact that it has chlorophyll makes it the first Pokemon to actually fully use both the grass and the fire aspects of Sun, which is awesome, and to get stabbed from them too. The issue is the stats sort of suck, but let's say it is speed boosted with chlorophyll. This speed stat is actually going to be really good at 75 then, but 108 attack and 108 special attack makes us a mix attacker, but we have terrible defenses across the board. So I'm really, this is like only could potentially be used on a Sun team, and even then we're going to have to see how good that is, but potentially maybe good in a VGC sense. Then we got Bellybolt, which 45 speed, really slow, potential Trick Room on, 109 HP and 103 special attack. Electromorphosis is good though because it will boost the damage of its next electric attack after it's been hit. So could be actually really strong. It could be, especially if you can Terra Electric and then you get hit, that's going to do a lot of damage, like with a discharge or something like that. So we'll have to wait and see more on Bellybolt. I don't think it's going to be OU though, probably UU or worse, but maybe VGC could have some trick. Then we got Revavroom, who's Poison Steel, very first time getting that, but it does not have speed boost because only the Team Star variants get it. Honestly, 119 attack with 90 defense and 90 speed does make this thing viable, and it honestly is a very slow gen, as you guys have noticed by now. So I think this thing has really strong potential of being good, especially with that type combo. Orthworm Pure Steel of Earth Eater, which means it is immune to ground. It's like essentially water absorbed, so it's going to get HP back from ground attacks. This thing has 145 defense. That's pretty strong. 85 attack though, 65 speed. Really awkward stats across the board at the end of the day. So I don't think this thing's going to be actually that good. Sandvale's not that useful on it either. Then we got Mousehold, which has Technician. And this Pokemon could actually be incredible, especially for VGC. I mean, 111 speed is huge. You're going to be outspeeding a lot of the metagame. It doesn't have great stats across the board, but with Technician, we have seen what Technician has done to a lot of Pokemon. So definitely be on the lookout for Mousehold. So Titan is a absolute monster. It has Sheer Force. You know how Thick Fat was great? Yes, to remove a weakness, that's great. Slush Rush, great. If you're running a Hail team, fantastic. But Sheer Force, holy crap. 170 HP, 113 attack. This thing is a monster. 73 speed isn't great, but if you have it with Slush Rush, that's going to be monstrous. And yeah, Ice type sucks. However, Ice to get a boost if you are in a snowstorm. 50% increase to your defense. So this defense stat could be actually huge. I think Titan is going to be an OU Pokemon for sure. And then we have the Pseudo-legendary Braxcalibur, and Thermal Exchange is busted. Immune to fire, can't be burned. 145 attack. That's a godlike Pokemon. This Pokemon's insane with 115 HP as well, 92 defense, 87 speed. Yeah, it's a little bit slower. We wish it was a little bit faster, but 87 speed is fast enough to outspeed most of the metagame already. And you just go max attack, max speed. Thermal Exchange is so, oh my god, it's so good. The fact that you're immune to fire, that and burn, and also his signature move is a free setup move. It's Dragon Dance, but it also removes hazards. This thing is crazy. This thing is OU. This thing is a monster. Absolute beast. Then we got Tatsuguri, Dragon Water. Not that impressive. 120 special attack, 82 speed, 95 speed def. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's just really frail across the board. Dragon Water is great typing, of course. Storm Drain's pretty good. Commander is only good in VGC, so nothing really to talk about there. Cyclizar has Regenerator, which is a massive Regenerator with its signature move where it creates a substitute, is a free U-turn substitute that, yeah, with Regenerator. Okay, so we're spamming Cyclizar. I think this thing's gonna be a monster. 121 speed is one of the fastest things you've even seen on the spreadsheet, if not the fastest already. And 95 attack is actually very viable. With Dragon normal too, this thing's gonna be good. I think it's actually gonna be pretty solid. Then we got Pawmont, Electric Fighting, Volt Absorb, and Iron Fist. Pretty good stuff. 115 attack, 105 speed. Viability is here, and it does have the signature ability to a signature move to revive a dead Pokemon once per battle, and it doesn't actually hurt you. So we could see some play with this. Then Kilowattrel is actually pretty solid. Wind power actually isn't that good, sadly, but Voltazor is pretty solid. It gives us an immunity to electric, 105 special attack with 125 speed. Does put this thing as sort of a really fast special attacker sweeper. It's going to be fantastic in the rain because it does get thunder or hurricane. So definitely keep an eye out for Kilowattrel. I think this thing's a little bit underrated at the moment. Then we have Bombardier, which I don't think is going to be that good of a Pokemon. Rocky Payload does give it stab on rock type moves, but I just think 103 attack being your best stat is just not good enough out here. Squawkabilly has a lot of different abilities based on the forms, and Intimidate and Sheer Force and Guts are all very good. This thing actually surprises me with his stat total. I mean, 417, but at least the stats are put in a good way with 96 attack and 92 speed. Pretty solid, but it is pretty frail, so we won't be using it. Then Flamingo with 500 stats, 115 attack, and 90 speed. Pretty solid. With flying and fighting, has pretty decent abilities. Co-Star is good for VGC, copies your partner's stat changes. So this could be really good as a late game sweeper. Cloth, unfortunately, does not seem to be that good. It does have a built-in Shell Smash with Anger Shell, but it does have Regenerator, which is definitely going to be the better ability of the two. 100 attack and 115 defense. Pretty solid with 75 speed, but at the end of the day, I just don't think it has what it needs. But a better rock type is right here, which is Garganacide, which has Purifying Salt, which is incredible. You can't be status, and you reduce ghost damage by 50%. So that's definitely going to be the better ability. 35 speed is great for Trick Room, but 100 attack, 100 HP, 130 defense with 90 Spadef. This thing's actually going to be really good, so watch out for this. I think this thing could be a potential really good weakness policy Pokemon too. So we got Glimmera, which is poison and rock, toxic debris, and corrosion. So toxic debris essentially puts out toxic spikes when it gets hit by a physical move, and corrosion means you can just poison steel type. So that's actually really good. 130 special attack of 86 speed is actually going to be pretty good in this gen, with 90 defense as well. I'm actually a big fan of this. 81 Spadef, it's pretty solid stat line. We just need to know the moves on this, but I think this Pokemon's actually going to be really good at the end of the day. Giraffe is interesting, and it does have Prankster, which is very interesting. Unburdened 2 to make that speed even faster than before, and then type combo is unique. I will say this, though, doesn't really have the stat line I want. I wish it had like a over 500, because it just looks a little bit more frail than I wanted it to be. But a 95 attack is good. Wish it was 100 attack, though, and 110 speed is pretty massive. Then we got Dachshund, who has Well Baked, which means you're immune to fire, and you hit by a fire move, your defense goes up by 2. So this thing's defense is actually monstrous. 95 speed is really good too. 80 attack is not really usable. I think your attack's under 90. It's just not going to be that good of a Pokemon, but it could have some bulk and usage. Then we got Mastaboth here, and Mastaboth is... Then we have Mabosstiff, which I have to use a different sheet because they didn't complete it there. But 120 attack, 85 speed is actually pretty viable. 90 defense is good too, and it has Intimidate, so I think it's going to be pretty decent at the end of the day. Bramble Guy's Ghost and Grass with Wind Rider is actually pretty good. Wind Rider procs whenever it gets hit by Wind Mood and by Tailwind. So it's solid ability, actually. But at the end of the day, I don't know how I feel about this thing. Very low HP stat, and those defenses aren't that high. Good attack, good speed, but we'll have to see. Then we got Golden Go. Honestly, really insane special attack. Decent speed, 84. Wish it was a bit higher. The defenses aren't too, I mean, they're actually really good. 95 defense and special defense. This is actually really good defensive, never mind. And it can't be status because of good as gold. So this thing's actually going to be pretty solid with ghost and steel typing. But we have to really see the move pool. It really depends on the move pool, but it's going to be really good. And then we got the Paradox Pokemon, which are all beastly. Great Tusk is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal Pokemon. This is definitely one of the best of all the Paradox Pokemon. Then we got Brute Bonnet, which is going to be really good. The fact that Amoonguss here is going to get 127 attack and still have Spore, it's going to make it an absolute threat. 55 speed is a little bit faster than I would like it because, Trick Room, but it does outspeed some things, I guess. And, the defenses are really good with near 100 defenses. So definitely watch out for this Pokemon too. Then we got Sandy Shocks here, which honestly, 101 speed and 121 special attack with actually solid defenses across the board. Being electric and ground, I can see this thing being very viable. Electric and ground are both phenomenal attacking types too, so Sandy Shocks has something going on. Now, Screamtail, I'm not sure how I feel about this thing. This thing has phenomenal defenses, right? 115 HP and special defense, 99 defense. It's really fast, but only 65 attack and special attack. I don't know how I feel about this thing. I don't think it's going to be that good, but it could be a good stalling Pokemon potentially. And then we got Fluttermane. This thing's going to be broken. This could go to Uber straight up. 135 special attack, special defense, and speed. We don't even care about the other stats. Ghost Fairy, you have Moonblast, you have Shadow Ball. You're probably get things like Mystical Fire too. Yeah, this thing's gonna be an Ubers. There's no way it's not. So Slitherwing is interesting because we got Bug Fighting Volcarona with 135 attack and 105 Spadef. So that's gonna be really good Spadef. 81 speed is a little bit lower than I want it to be, and the defenses overall are pretty decent besides Spadef, which is really good. I think this thing is going to be pretty solid, but I don't think it's going to be Uber. I think it's going to be OU for sure. Roaring Moon's insane. Yeah, this is probably one of the best Pokemon in the entire game right now. 139 attack with 119 speed. Dark Dragon. That's phenomenal stabs you're going to be getting. Special attack is useless, which is great. Has great Spadef too and great HP. This thing's going to be a beast. Absolutely. Then we got Iron Treasure, a ground and steel. I think it is worse than Great Tusk, but it is fast with 106 speed. I mean, 120 defense is very good too, and 112 attack. But I just rather have Great Tusk. If I had to pick between the two, it'd be Great Tusk. Iron Moth is a monster. Iron Moth is definitely a beast. Fire Poison, phenomenal stabs there. 110 speed, 140 special attack. If this thing has Quiver Dance, watch out. This is Ubers for sure. Iron Hands, pretty solid actually. It's just literally a better Hariyama with more HP and more attack, way more defense too. This thing is going to be crazy. Fighting electric, and if it has any priority moves like Mach Punch, Bullet Punch, then this 50 speed does not matter, and that 140 attack is really going to shine. Iron Jugulus is literally just a better Hydreigon. Way better speed, 10 more speed, a little bit less special attack, but that's okay because honestly, we are not really wasting any stats in the attack stat. So the stat spread is a lot better. Even though I have a lower stat total, it's going to be phenomenal. This thing is going to be actually really good at the end of the day. Going to be OU for sure. Iron Thorns is interesting because I think it actually is worse than Tranitar because we don't have Sandstream. And Sandstream gives that 50% boost to our Spadef, which made Tranitar an absolute beast. Iron Thorns does not get that here. And Iron Thorns has the same attack and defense, but it has less special attack, which I think is worse because Tranitar actually uses it for Fire Blast. So, I don't know. I'd rather think Tranitar is better than Iron Thorns. I think it's a big miss. Now, new Delibird Iron Bundle is insane. 136 speed, and I think is the fastest thing we have seen so far, with 124 special attack, ice, water, and it actually gets a Roar Veil. This thing's a beast. This thing is going to be in every Hail team, and it's OU or maybe even Uber, straight up a monster. Iron Valiant is interesting because 130 attack with 120 special attack with 116 speed. It's going to make this thing an absolute beast sweeper. It doesn't necessarily have the best defenses, but Fairy Fighting is phenomenal typing. You're going to have to hit it specially to take it out. This thing's honestly going to be an absolute monster, though. It's going to be probably Uber. And then we got the legendaries, the Dark Quartet. This one is crazy. This is absolutely crazy, the ground one. 165 HP with 100 attack, 130 defense, and 80 speed def. 80 speed def is great with 165 HP. Also, Vessel Ruin lowers the special attack of all a Pokemon on the field besides yourself. That's crazy. All these abilities are crazy. But he's Sword of Ruin that lowers all defense, which is absolutely insane. I forgot what these two but it's going to be like attack and it's going to be special defense. So yeah, it's crazy. These are all crazy Pokemon, honestly. Chien Pao, 130 attack with 135 speed and lowers your defense. Broken. GG. Absolutely broken. This thing is really good too. 135 speed def. And it can set up grassy terrain with dark and grass type. This is going to be pretty good. Not as good as these two, but it's going to be pretty good. And 145 special attack with 100 speed and 120 special defense. Chi-Yu is also going to be insane too. So all these guys are going to be nutty. And of course, we got the legendaries here as well, which, you know, they're broken, of course. Ubers. We're not done because the dex is weird. We skipped a lot of Pokemon. Tinkaton is actually not that crazy good. Its stat line is very awkward. It does have a special attack that does 160 steel type physical, but you can't use the next turn. But you still can use another attack though. But yeah, the stat spread is really disappointing on Tinkaton, sadly. Armarouge and Ceruledge. I actually think Armarouge is a lot better than Ceruledge. I gotta say this because it has way more bulk than Ceruledge, and honestly, 85 speed is not gonna cut it when you're this frail. Especially, like, I don't know. I feel like Ceruledge is just too frail. Has a lot of weaknesses, and I just think Armarouge has just more bulk to it, which is going to matter more at the end of the day, in my personal opinion. But I also think both of these Pokemon aren't going to end up being that good. I mean, their speed stats will just end up being too low for their attack stats. Then we got Toedscruel. And Toedscruel is crazy because this thing, yeah, it's grass and ground. Yeah, 4 times weak to ice, but it does have Spore. But its ability makes it so all status moves it does go last. So we'll have to see, but this is a good stat spread at the end of the day. It works for Tentacruel, but we're going to have to see how this actually works in competitive. King Gambit is interesting. We lose 20 speed, but we gain so much HP and attack and defense and speed def. And its new ability, Supreme Overload, is insane. It gets a boost to its stats whenever one of your Pokemon gets knocked out. So this thing's going to be crazy as a late game sweeper. Clodsire is going to be insane. It's actually just a better Quagsire. It is a more optimized Quagsire, straight up, and it has Unaware. So, yeah, this thing's a beast. More HP, more speed F, less speed, so better for Trick Room. And, yeah, you have less attack and defense, but who cares about your special attack? This is just a more optimized Quagsire, which is awesome. Then we have Annihilate, which thing's a monster. 110 attack. 115 attack, 110 HP, and 90 speed with Defiant, Fighting Ghost. This thing's a monster. Absolute beast. This thing's gonna be so good. Nice to see this typing away from Marshadow. And then we got the Tauroses, which are all the same, but they just have different types. And honestly, it's not that impressive. But 100 speed is good, but 110 attack is pretty decent. Well, there we have it. That is all the stats for all the new Pokemon coming to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I hope you enjoyed this long video and watched to the end. And of course, guys, if you're new to the channel, please leave a like. Everyone leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. I really appreciate it. And I'll catch you guys next time for more Pokemon action. Peace out and have a great one.